Newsradio 1070 WKOK presents On the Mark. It's a chance to voice your opinion on the events that affect life in the Susquehanna Valley. Call 1-800-795-9565 or email onthemark@wkok.com. Now, here are your hosts for On the Mark, Mark Lawrence and Joe McGranahan.
Greetings and welcome aboard the WKOK Live Telephone Talk Show. It is entitled On the Mark. I am Mark Lawrence, host of the show. As the 9 o'clock hour is underway, we will have open phones today. And during the half hour that we have just entered, we'll have a guest. We'll be introducing her in a little bit here on WKOK. So we invite you to stay tuned, and maybe if you have questions or more observations about this important topic, you give us a buzz. But first of all, we do have the webcam up and running. We invite you to go to WKOK.com, click on the Ustream banner there. You see a quick message from Ustream, and then you can watch the On the Mark show. That same spot turns into a 24-hour archive after the show. You can watch the show later, or you can go to WKOK's YouTube channel. And when you're watching that show, that Ustream channel, the YouTube channel is right there. Just click right there. There's no sign-in or password needed. They just want to know that you're interested, and then if you give them an email, they'll tell you every time we post a new video at WKOK.com. So the YouTube channel for WKOK always up and running. The webcam's up and running now. Kevin's got everything tweaked and adjusted and has the chroma key and the green screen and the IFBs and all this stuff ready to go. See, that's TV talk.
Oh, that's impressive.
Is it? All right. And the main sponsor of our program, also impressive, the Sunbury Motor Company. They have hundreds of cars for you to look at online or in person, either on North 4th Street in Sunbury or routes 11 and 15 Hummel's Wharf. And Hummel's Wharf, that's where you find the Kia dealership. Boy, have they got a vehicle that would fit you nicely. Let's start with the Kia Optima. It is a vehicle that comes in an all-electric mode or just a hybrid mode or gasoline mode, and all of them ultra-efficient and very stylish-looking automobiles. If there's one thing Kia does, they crank out cars that look great, and Sunbury Motors sells them at reasonable costs, and they have buyer loyalty programs that would just make you keep coming back. SunburyMotors.com, the place to find more information. GroningerInsurance.com, the place to find more information about the answer to the question that Joe keeps asking over and over and over again.
Do you know if your insurance is at the right price?
Oh, see, now he's trying to say it's not him asking the question.
No, it's not.
That was a lady calling in?
No, that was my little puppeteer.
Ah, puppeteer. Okay, well, there's a puppeteer
Hi,
over
Mark.
there. Yes, hi. Okay. Let's see. Groninger Insurance. I don't even
Threw
know.
you off your game, didn't I?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Groninger can give you, if the answer to the question that the puppet asked, what's the name of your puppet?
It doesn't have a name yet.
Okay.
It was Topo Gigio, but that was taken years ago.
Okay. I thought you were going to call it Kevin, but he's somebody else's puppet.
Yes.
Let Groninger give you a free, no-obligation second opinion on your home, auto, or business insurance. Lots more information about that at GroningerInsurance.com. They're dead serious about this. They can really save you money. If you have insurance elsewhere, just ask them over the telephone even. You don't even have to necessarily do that in person, but they'd love to meet you, shake hands, and get to know you a little bit at Groninger Insurance, GroningerInsurance.com. Lenape Solar email in basket is open. You simply email on the mark at WKOK.com, and we can do with you what we're going to do with three other folks who sent us notes. We'll read them out loud on the radio. And we do have 3 emails pending in the in-basket, but the Lenape Solar email in-basket sponsored by Lenape. They have 3 foci, in case you haven't heard, the ductless HVAC system by Fujitsu that save you a lot of money. Heating systems for your home that can use solar or generate electricity from the sun. And number 3, commercial lighting audits that will save your business a lot of money. Take them up on one of those opportunities. LenapeSolar.com, their main website. With that, we're very glad to say that the woman who our valley knows as the rector at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church is here. She is Robin Jarrell. We've been reading some of her posts on Facebook. A resourceful person can see her name in the Daily Item from time to time, as not often enough, but we certainly see your really important viewpoints there. And she has been a priest at the Diocese of Central Pennsylvania in the Episcopal Church, Virginia Theological Seminary, and just a great person to know. And I guess like her on Facebook, because I think that's where her if you want to.
I got you, Mark.
Because she's, I mean, it really helps you look at some of the political discussions that happen, and some of the faith-related discussions, and really is all good stuff. So we're glad you're here in person, Robin. Thanks for coming in.
Sure.
We had you on the Newsline earlier this year on the WKOK Sunrise, so now we're glad we meet you in person. Well, we've been talking about immigration, and some of us have been asking about what is our faith perspective on this. You know, does faith influence our politics? And the answer is no for a lot of folks. So, but when you look at this, you see sort of your faith and your devoutness as something that influences everything you do and your political views too.
Right.
What do you see when you look at this influx of children seeking asylum here in the U.S.? What do you see when you hear about that and talk about it?
I see two things, really. I see the Old Testament injunction to care for the widows and the orphans and the strangers. And I also then see that Jesus asks us in the New Testament to make sure that we take care of the least of these. And he also talks about children and bringing children into his purview and his care. So to me, the idea is that it is our Christian response to make sure that we do something.
All right, well, why not do what Lou Barletta suggested, that we take very good care of them as we slowly and carefully transport them back to Central America?
Yeah, but see, that's the issue. Apparently, it's because we have created this problem in a way, the United States has, with its policy towards Central America, and that these children are literally, and their mothers and their whole families are fleeing for their lives, and it is no longer a safe place for those kids to go. So sending them back is not going to help them. Sending them back is going to make it worse, and they're in danger. So I think we have a responsibility. I was telling this to my husband last night, and he wrote me an email this morning and said, you know what? I think because he didn't understand about the policy of the United States and how we have created this issue. And he said, well, it just really makes me, I'm referring to a HuffPost article. Here's how the U.S. sparked a refugee crisis on the border in 8 simple steps. And he said, if this is true, and it seems to be credible reporting, then that means that we do have a responsibility, because if we cause this as a nation to have it happen. But beyond that, as a nation, we're called as Christians to take care of the least of these, and you know, we turned our backs on the Jewish kids in 1939. We didn't take any of those kinds of folks, but now I think we need to do something.
Wouldn't it be better to solve the problem where it exists rather than try to solve it here?
Oh, well, see, here, there, to me, it doesn't matter where it gets solved. It just needs to be solved. Well, I mean, if you're saying to change the policy of the way the United States deals with Central America and those countries, and then to help them fund their programs so that they can take care of the children when they're there, absolutely, that would be the ideal thing.
Well, I mean, you look at the cost involved. We have today in this country overextended ourselves, and that every cent we borrow or spend now is practically borrowed from China. And it doesn't seem to me like we should be bankrupting ourselves to solve a problem that isn't really ours. I would dispute the fact that we created it. I mean, our policy towards South America has been difficult from time to time. We've supported a lot of Banana Republic leaders down there who probably we shouldn't have supported. But we've tried to, in more recent years, give a more even hand to the problem. But I mean, these kids are coming across Mexico. Why isn't it Mexico's problem to solve them? Why aren't they bearing some responsibility to help? They're just pushing them up to our border and saying, go there.
Well, as far as what I understand, the Lutheran bishop was explaining that the children who were and their families who were coming over weren't illegal immigrants so much as people seeking refuge.
Asylum.
So, asylum, political asylum. And so if that is the case, then we do have a responsibility to take them in.
Well, what about the age of these kids? You know, it makes it sound like they're children, really young children, but they aren't. Only 16% of those coming across are 12 years of age and younger. Now, certainly they should be treated a little bit differently than teenagers on up.
Why?
Well, because I think they are more vulnerable. A lot of these teenagers coming across the border are being recruited by gangs and have been supported by gangs in their trip up here.
But doesn't it make sense to also focus on that particular instance of a kid getting involved with gangs? I mean, isn't there something that we can do for that? I mean, we just write them off then? We just say, okay, you're you know...
well, and according to what the bishop said, teen age is when they become most vulnerable.
Vulnerable to the gangs, yeah,
right.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, it's a process. And that was the other issue that I find kind of interesting, is that part of me wants to say, well, you know, your argument about, well, this is going to cost us money and it's really not our problem. But the issue that I have is, what are we doing with our own kids in this country? You know, we have a terrible track record of not only kids who are in poverty, kids who are homeless, kids who are you know, they're in abusive situations, children who are you know, not taken care of. And so what is America doing about that? Now, I think that is a far better argument than, well, it's going to cost us money, it's really not our problem. I mean, why should we, I can see that America may be saying, you know, well, we really don't know how to deal with our own children. Why should we be bringing more in? Because we can't care for our own children. If we have all of these situations where children are being really mistreated and not well, you know, taken care of, just basic, you know, health care and homelessness and poverty, it really begs the question, well, what are we doing then? I mean, it starts early on in a child's life that we don't even support maternity leave or paternity leave. We expect that parents get their kids to have their own you know, daycare. We don't have any support for really nurturing strong, healthy children. So why do we bring the kid more? Why should we want to bring more kids here?
Well, look at it this way. This country was founded on individual responsibility, and during the formative years of this country, there was no daycare, there was no maternity leave, and still the country grew and prospered and became strong.
Right, and I think that you bring an issue to me that is I think at one point I had to ask myself, what am I going to call myself first? What is it going to be important for me, to be a citizen or to be a Christian? Hopefully I don't have to make those two, a distinction between the two. But when push comes to shove, my question to myself is, what is the Christian response? Not, what is the American response?
All right, we're going to take a quick break here, but we would invite our audience to join us in this conversation. We're really at the same place we were last Thursday morning, looking at the bottom line of this topic is how does our faith influence our politics, and how does our politics influence this, and as Robin has said, create this influx of children that we talked about. You are listening to On the Mark. It is the WKOK Live Telephone Talk Show. We invite you to join the conversation. Call the Groninger Insurance toll-free line. It is 1-800-795-9565. That's 1-800-795-9565. The Lampy Solar email in basket is available to you at onthemark@WKOK.com. We would love to hear from you. And our main sponsor is the Sunbury Motor Company.
While looking for a vehicle, you know that if it sounds too good to be true, chances are it is too good to be true. You get the runaround, gotta go from place to place. Well, you can just skip all of that and go straight to Sunbury Motor Company. Sunbury Motor Company has been satisfying more customers and selling more cars since 1915, so you know they've got it right. No offers that look good on paper or online, and then you get disappointed when you see them in person. Sunbury Motor Company offers a lineup few other auto dealers in the area can compete with. With the inventory of Ford, Hyundai, Kia, and Lincoln vehicles, there will be no problem finding the right vehicle that fits your needs and your budget. And the friendly, knowledgeable staff's ready and able to help you with everything from the test drive to the drive off the lot. See for yourself at Sunbury Motors. Sunbury Motors, Ford, Lincoln, Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury. And Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf. Look for them online anytime at sunburymotors.com.
The store is open. Sunbury Broadcasting Corporation brings you half-price Susquehanna Valley, where you can buy a certificate for half the cost of its value.
Fresh, warm sweets and hot coffee, a perfect combo. Even better with a $25 gift certificate for just $12.50 to the Cupcake'em Cafe Sunbury this Wednesday morning at 9. Their specialty, create your own cupcake. And you can do that for less with your Cupcake'em Cafe gift certificate.
Get shopping and save this week at half-price Susquehanna Valley, only from
WKOK.com.
Here's a bright idea. Why not use light to carry billions of bits of data per second, making network connections hundreds of times faster and much more reliable? That's just what Penn Teledata's fiber optic network does. And we've invested in over 9,000 miles throughout our communities, connecting schools, banks, healthcare networks, and even wireless towers that enable your smartphone to be, well, smart. Know what else is smart? Connecting your business to our fiber network. See the light with Penn Teledata, your recommended source of fiber.
Would you trust a blocked artery to a plumber? Then why trust the health of your network to outdated technology? Connect at the speed of light with Penn Teledata's state-of-the-art true fiber optic network, offering the smartest, most reliable data connections to keep operations running stronger than ever before. That's why more doctors and business professionals trust their company to Penn Teledata. When choosing a provider, get a second opinion. You'll be glad you did. Penn Teledata, your recommended source of fiber.
Big Ten Media Day continues in Chicago. We'll talk about that and also the future of Penn State athletics. 3 to 5 today, News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Welcome back to the WKOK Live Telephone Talk Show on the Mark. Kevin, I hope the correct microphone is on, because if we were monitoring the off conversation here, I might do some off-putting of one of the large religious groups in the nation here. Would have been my fault, but we have. It
was your fault too.
Yes, I'm aware. Thank you. I always drag us down to the lowest common denominator.
No closed circuit feeds available.
Oh, good. Thank you. All right. Well, we have in the studio. Oh, and I haven't mentioned Kevin Herr is here, greatest engineer in the world, winner of many awards. So many, in fact, that they actually form a ring around the Earth. They've been so many have been jettisoned into space. Oh, you've heard this already. Yeah,
no, that's funny.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, and the laugh comes from Robin Jarrell, who's the rector at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church. Around here, we'd call her a pastor or a priest, and she is the mother, just as a father. Father Jarrell might have been her father if he was a priest also, but she's mother.
Well,
Robin.
it came from when I was there before. I was an intern, and the priest there was Father Bond, and so it just made sense for them when they got a woman rector. They said, "Oh, okay, mother, that works."
Okay, so
but it's from the monastic tradition, so it has a history.
So it's respect and cute.
Well, you know what? It reminds me. It keeps me remembering who I am and what I promise to do, and so I like it. But
do any of your parishioners ever come up to you and say, "Are you my mother?" Robin?
No, but they do give me menus from Red Robin where there's an actual dessert called a Mother Robin. So they bring. That's really sweet when they do that.
The dessert is sweet too.
Well, you know, they're just great. They're great folks, and they put up with me and my radical ideas about what it is to be a Christian, and we don't always agree, but I said, well, then what's the fun of that, you know?
Well, your church is out there, too. The diaper pantry's there.
Oh, yeah.
AA is there. I mean, you don't really have to tell too many folks where St. Matt's Episcopal Church is in Sunbury.
Right. Well, you know, the whole thing is that we're like every other Christian denomination and community. We're seeing this kind of a disappearing of the old way of being church, you know. So we've got this beautiful building, and we've gone from having a full-time male priest for the family to a half-time female priest, and so the church, the times they are changing, but I think the most important thing that we can do, and I think a lot of folks in the area are doing it as well, is to say, well, how do we be relevant? How do we then be Christ's disciples instead of church, as what we think of like the building of the church? How do we go out and do the diaper pantry? And we also have a food pantry as well, and we have AA and all that other kind of stuff. But still, that sanctuary sits empty for most of the week. What else can we do? And the question that I keep asking folks is, if we were to disappear tomorrow, would Sunbury miss us? And I think that that's the question that we need to keep in our heads. So.
what we talked about off mic, and I'll give people the general heading, is how much does our faith influence our life politic and our citizenship here. So what's the answer to how we should blend those? And I'll be the first to admit that, you know, what I do in church often, I never think about at the voting booth or maybe political candidates. Maybe I'm getting better at it, but it's not the first thing that pops into my head.
Well, you know, it's interesting because people don't realize that Jesus was crucified as a political prisoner. And so back in first century Palestine, there was really no difference between politics and religion. It was all of a piece. And I still think that that's true for me, that to me there is no politics on this side and religion on this side. It's trying to figure out, okay, how best can the question I keep having is, what is my Christian response? What is our Christian response? Because it's not just me. Because you can't be a Christian just by yourself. So what is our Christian response? And I think over and over I keep coming up against that. Now, I'll be the first to say, you know, I'm not asking one of those migrant kids to come and live in my house. I'm not, you know, okay, so there's a disconnect there. I'm not saying, you know, okay, but, you know, and I think that's the issue that everybody has, that we try to figure out, well, you know, we want to be good Christians, but on the other hand, you know, how do we go about doing that? And I think we really do know. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science. We just don't do it.
I'm curious about the numbers. You know, I'm sure if a child came to your door hungry, you would feed it.
Mm-hmm.
If 1,000 people came to your door, 1,000 children, and said, would you feed me? At some point, you're going to have to say, well, I can't do that unless I sell my house, sell all my possessions, maybe rob a bank. How far down the road do you have to go?
Well,
at what point does it become someone else's responsibility to solve their own problems? Why are we the ones who have to resolve it? There are Christians in El Salvador, there are Christians in Guatemala, there are Christians in Mexico. Is their obligation any less than ours?
No, not at all. But I've been thinking about next week is the loaves and the fishes. And, you know, the disciples are saying to Jesus, look, you know, you got to let these people go and get something to eat. You know, go and let them figure it out. And Jesus says, no, you give them something to eat. And I think that that's when you said, you know, if one kid came to my door, it's not just what I as a single lone Christian can do, it's what Christians as a community are able to do and can do and should do. And what Jesus is asking us is saying, no, you are my hands and heart in this world. You do it. You know, Christians all over the world absolutely have a responsibility, no less than we do. Unfortunately, right now, many Christians have bigger problems than feeding migrant children.
So ISIS is actually telling Christians, you either convert to Islam,
pay a tax,
or we kill you. I mean, that's what kind of a religion is that?
Right. Well, yeah, but we're not here to debate ISIS. I think what we're talking about is that the Christian response is to really the response is to do what Jesus asked us to do, to love one another and love profusely, profoundly. And embrace one another and do that. And so the other issue I did want to bring up quickly, which is I think that this is a touchstone issue for many reasons. And I think for me it brings out the question of, well, politically, then what does not align with my Christian ideas and values? But more than that, I think I also understand that I've noticed that the voices are really loud and they're really shrill, and people are really worried about the fact, as you so rightly pointed out, you know, we can barely take care of ourselves. How can we take care of more? And, you know, I think that the issue is really scaring a lot of people because they're fearing for their jobs. You know, the wage gap between the rich and the poor is wider than ever, and people are really, really worried. I mean, I remember, you know, people used to... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, please, go.
I just think that the shrillness has kind of made me sit up and take notice and to see that people are really worried about this country.
It's very revealing, if absolutely nothing else. Right. Yeah, well said. Cindy, thank you so much for calling in. You are on the mark.
Good morning. We know that one of the issues related to allowing these children to remain in this country is economic. It's resources. And the federal government has claimed that they will cover these costs by giving grants. But one of our second challenges in terms of this, from my perspective, is that we have a policy where churches are not taxed. We give them a full tax exemption, not just at the federal level, but also at the state level and at the local level. And I'm wondering, would you support repealing that so that the churches have an opportunity to exercise their ethics by supporting the things that they're advocating for with the cash from their resources?
I'm just not sure what taxing churches is going to do. I mean,
more money. It's going to create. Look at Selinsgrove. 50% of the property in Selinsgrove, last time I heard, was in hands, religious and otherwise. That means that they don't contribute. Those properties don't pay property tax, which funds not only the school district, the local school district, but also the local government. And it seems to me that if one's passion, certainly when I'm passionate about something, I put my actions to work and I put my money to work. And I'm wondering, why wouldn't the churches want to embrace repealing this full tax exemption, knowing those dollars were going to go to support the hungry, the homeless, these children that are in strife, better school districts, et cetera, et cetera?
Cindy, that's not completely correct, because churches do pay taxes on certain parts of property. Like if you have a separate parking area, for instance. So to say that they're not paying taxes is not really accurate.
Okay,
well, anyway, let's say more taxes.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
If all of their property became taxable.
I hate to stop.
Cindy, holds all these buildings. And
I'm going to put you on hold. Let's get some of the answer now.
Okay.
And then we'll get the rest at 9:06.
The issue of having taxes is that, you know, some of those taxes are going to things that I think churches might not want to sponsor, like defense spending, for example, or, you know, the war machinery that happens. So maybe on the local level that's a whole other different attitude. But I do think it's a valid point, and I think that maybe what churches ought to do is to look at how we can, as a community, put more money into the community. I think we try to do that, but just not on a government level.
Well, it could be a converse type thing. If the churches want all these humanitarian programs, as Christians, they could run them themselves and not have the government spend the money.
You know, that's a really good point, and I think that a lot of people think that, well, you know, should you have the government, you know, step in and do the Christian thing? I want to talk about Denmark, because to me that's really funny, and so I want to talk about the difference between the two when we get back.
Yeah, I think what we're going to have to do now is we may have the CBS News. We do have the CBS News, yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, I left the shot.
Oh, yeah, don't leave the shot. Whatever you do, never lean back here.
Never lean back, right?
At all times. Sound advice. Who's the woman? Sydney Schwartz wrote the book Lean In, something like that. You're listening to Newsradio 1070 WKOK Sunbury, WKOK News Time 9 a.m. We'll be back at 9:06 with more of On the Mark.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapani. Breaking news from the Middle East. A senior Palestinian official who claims to speak for Hamas is proposing a 24-hour ceasefire with Israel. An Israeli spokesman says the offer isn't serious because it doesn't come directly from Hamas. The last few hours have seen some of the heaviest Israeli ground and air attacks of the 3-week war in Gaza. Targets included Gaza's only power plant, broadcasting stations, and the Hamas leader's home. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner says the objective is to crush Hamas.
We are striking, and we are determined to strike this organization and relieve us from this threat.
CBS News correspondent Barry Peterson's Gaza hotel is close to Hamas rocket positions. A short time ago, incoming fire shook the building.
We're just checking around. We just had a hit near the hotel. There's some children here. They're all scared. They're moving them into the hallway.
An official in Gaza says at least 100 Palestinians have been killed today. That would push the death toll overall to more than 1,200. 55 Israelis have died. Washington sends a message to Moscow. We know what you've been doing. Live to CBS News White House correspondent Peter Mayer.
And, Frank, it is a direct message from President Obama notifying Russian leader Putin of U.S. proof that Moscow violated a 1987 missile test ban treaty. Veteran arms expert Joseph Cirincione says nearly 30 years later the treaty still matters.
You want to hold their feet to the fire. You want to enforce the rule of law here, uphold the treaty, back the Russians down.
While Russia contends the issue is closed, an administration official says it's a serious matter that the U.S. has tried to address for some time. Frank, this now, of course, becomes part of the face-off over Russian moves in Ukraine.
The speculation that Russia may be considering an invasion of Ukraine is pushing European diplomats meeting in Brussels towards stepped-up sanctions. CBS's Cammie McCormick has the latest from Ukraine.
The fighting today has been described as intense, with civilian soldiers and rebels killed. Ukrainian forces are pressing forward with an offensive that for the third day blocked investigators from reaching the Malaysian Airlines crash site.
Well, here at home, better sunscreens could be on the market one day soon. Live to CBS News correspondent Heather Bosch.
The Food and Drug Administration would have to speed approval of new types of sunscreen under a measure the House passed this week. The FDA hasn't okayed a new active ingredient for sunscreen in 15 years, even for products used safely around the world. The agency blames the slow process on a lack of resources. But the U.S. Surgeon General today declared skin cancer a major public health problem. Nearly 5 million Americans are treated for it each year.
The whale watchers whose boat was hooked by a lobster trap 15 miles from Boston are back on dry ground. WBC's Carl Stevens has that.
It was a long night, and the ship just rocking back and forth, and these people who thought they were going to be out for just a couple hours to see some whales spent a long and very uncomfortable night at sea.
S&P futures are up 2.5 points. This is CBS News.
Attention homeowners. I'm Jay Farner, president of Quicken Loans, and I have some important information for you regarding the U.S. government's Home Affordable Refinance Program, or HARP. We've told you about HARP in the past, and more than 3 million homeowners have already taken advantage of this money-saving program. But there are so many more of you who could be saving hundreds of dollars every month on your mortgage. And Quicken Loans is here to help you save your money. The home loan experts at Quicken Loans fully understand the HARP guidelines. If you weren't HARP eligible in the past, new guidelines could mean that now you are. Give us a call and we'll give you a Quicken Loans mortgage review. It's simple and easy. And for 4 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Call 800-QUICKEN. That's 800-QUICKEN. Or go to QuickenLoans.com for a mortgage experience that's engineered to amaze.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Payment example excludes taxes and insurance. Calls for cost information. Equal housing lender license in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Investigators may have evidence of new atrocities during a European war more than 15 years ago. CBS's Larry Miller has the story.
The EU is investigating what it says are compelling indications. Up to 10 captives were killed to have their organs harvested during the Kosovo War in the late 1990s. But Special American Prosecutor Clint Williamson says there's not yet sufficient evidence to prosecute. Leading political figures in Kosovo face indictments by an EU court for crimes against Serb and Roma minorities. Other possible war crimes considered include murder, abductions, and sexual violence. Larry Miller, CBS News, London.
2 Americans who worked with Ebola victims in Liberia and came down with the virus seem to be holding their own.
They are in isolation, and we know from this epidemic the mortality rate is 60%. So hopefully, they diagnose themselves, they put themselves in isolation. Presumably they got very early treatment, and we're crossing our fingers.
CBS's Dr. John LaPook. I'm Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
You've been thinking about moving over to solar power for your home. So are a lot of other people, which is why some power companies are pushing for extra fees to make up the difference. Is it finally happening? Is solar power actually becoming a threat to the old power conglomerates? Don't fund big power's losses while everybody else goes solar. Get caught in the middle, or go with a trusted local solar company and actually own it, and reduce your energy bill with no down payment, interest, or payments for a whole year. Get tax breaks and big monthly energy savings. Avoid falling behind and paying extra. Don't be the last one in line. Our nation's power supplies are shifting. Wait too long and you may wind up paying for it. Want to completely eliminate your power bill? Get all the tax incentives you're entitled to while you still can. And do it locally, because local is accountable and we finance. Call 1-800-MY-SOLAR for a free in-home assessment. 1-800-MY-SOLAR.
My home, my savings. 1-800-MY-SOLAR.
Newsradio 1070 WKOK presents On the Mark. It's a chance to voice your opinion on the events that affect life in the Susquehanna Valley. Call 1-800-795-9565 or email onthemark@wkok.com. Now, here are your hosts for On the Mark, Mark Lawrence and Joe McGranahan.
Greetings and welcome on board the WKOK Live Telephone Talk Show. Thanks for coming back. It is now the 29th day of July 2014. We're going to have 100% open phones as the hour progresses. We'll have some news headlines about 20 after. We're glad to say that Robin Jarrell is our guest on the show this morning. Mother Robin, as she's known by the folks that are in her parish, which is the St. Matthew's Episcopal Church on Front Street in Sunbury. The best thing about St. Matthew's is you go in there and it always still smells like incense.
Doesn't it though? Is that
It's
the
so
best?
wonderful. You know you're in a sanctuary, a tax-free sanctuary when you go in there. That alone makes it worth it. All right.
Don't start. Just don't start.
No, I had to do that for Kevin. And for Cindy. Cindy, I am so sorry. I put you on hold so we could get some answer, and I never picked back up, and that is poor phonesmanship on my part, so my apologies there. And I'm sorry I didn't pick back up. We do have the webcam up and running. We invite you to watch our show. Go ahead and go to WKOK.com, click on the Ustream banner, and then it locks you right on to the On the Mark show. And so do check that out at WKOK.com. Sunbury Motor Company is the sponsor of the show, a family-owned dealership, and they invite you to go online too. Go to sunburymotors.com. You can build your next Ford, car, or truck. It may be taking good care of the planet. Creation care is something you're going to start thinking about in the future. Put high gasoline mileage, hybrid, or electric vehicle in the search box, and Sunbury Motor Company will help you find a vehicle that can tow. Are you tuned in with this? A vehicle that can tow that's hybrid.
I like to burn gas.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. But they do have hybrid vehicles that have a hitch, and they would just love to teach you how you can pull.
What's the hitch?
The fact that the vehicles get high gasoline, over 30 miles to the gallon, and you can pull a boat. Now, boat is a very relative term, but nonetheless, they can help you out. Or pop-ups, or some of the small trailers that hold RVs.
Can I pull my boat with it?
No, your boat. You need a professional for that. You stay away from the trailer.
Okay, I will.
It has nothing to do with it. You can't do it. The Groninger Insurance Agency sponsors the toll-free line, which is 1-800-795-9565. That's 1-800-795-9565. We invite you to call us on the line as our show progresses here, and you can call us right now and ask about. We're talking about putting our faith into action as it comes to and changing U.S. policy. Groninger Insurance, full-service agency, meeting all of your insurance needs, including home, auto, business, flood, and other types of insurance. More information at Groningerinsurance.com. And the Lenape Solar email in basket is open. Simply email on the mark at WKOK.com, as 4 of our guests have done. We're going to read some of those in a moment, but they would just love to help you harness the power of the sun for a brighter tomorrow, help you go solar, whether it's generating heat or electricity. They can help you. LenapeSolar.com. Some quick scans at emails. Did Jesus say, help the young and the needy, but first check how much it's going to cost? I missed that in the Bible.
Oh, I'd be interested in hearing an examination of what he did here in the Bible.
What did he find out?
What did he find out
he'll
then?
tell you tomorrow. And another, Carrie Walters, who is our great American Catholic priest from the Lewisburg area, who I haven't seen in almost 18 hours, says, contrary to Joe's claim that early America was all about self-initiative and that our ancestors made it without child care services and so on, by 1787, slavery was a legal institution in 7 of the 13 states. Persons held in bondage accounted for 18% of the nation's 4 million population. They served as domestic servants, nurses, field hands, industrial workers, and personal servants. Self-initiative was certainly a characteristic of the early republic, but it ought to not be overplayed, says Pastor Carey. And one more before we get to our caller on the line. So, you are saying that if we are called as Christians to help these people coming over the border via our tax dollars, then we are coercing or conscripting citizens to be Christians against their will? Question mark.
Well, I don't understand that.
I think what he's saying is you're forcing me to be a Christian because your Christian attitude is that we should do this.
Well, no, I'm not forcing anybody. I'm saying, what is our Christian response? And if you are a Christian and you feel like you need to do something. Oh, you mean as a nation?
Right. It's the nation's policy we're talking about, but it's influenced by our faiths in many cases, and non-faith people were involved in writing.
But if the Christian argument is this should be done, we should ignore the cost, take care of these people, then his point is that are you forcing me then by spending my tax dollars for this, making me be a Christian?
Right, right.
Robin?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but I think that's the issue that I'm always wrestling with is how do you bring in the kingdom of heaven? Is it a policy decision? I don't think it is, but I also don't know. I can't just sit by and do nothing.
One child at a time.
One child at a time. And it just makes me think about how this country talks a lot about being a Christian nation, and yet we don't have the policy decisions in place that would call it a Christian. I mean, I don't think we are, and nor should we be a Christian nation. Let me just say that. But given that I've just said that, I really don't know what the divide is, and I don't know how to untangle those two issues about how do you, as a Christian, formulate policy for everybody. It's like saying, I don't know how as a Muslim you're going to formulate policy for everybody. But I just wanted to point out the interesting issue, and I think Joe and I were talking about it earlier, that the differences between America, which calls itself a Christian nation and yet doesn't have those policies, and a place like Denmark, for example, who doesn't call itself a Christian nation and is one of the most secular countries that I know, and yet there's almost, homelessness is non-existent. People have adequate child care, health care. They have one year maternity, paternity leave. And yet when you go into a church in Denmark, it's pretty much like being in a church in America. There's just a handful of people in there. And I once asked a religious person in Denmark, I said, how do you jive those two aspects, that you're not a Christian country, but you're doing it? And they said, well, people in Denmark would rather, they'll tell you about their sex lives before they'll tell you about their spiritual lives. And I thought, well, that's really not the American way of doing things. But the other issue is that, as Joe pointed out, it's the taxes, that they're really heavily taxed over there, but they seem to like it. And when I was over there, they happily call themselves a welfare state. I mean, if you said that in America, people would just freak out. But they know that's what they are. They're the government is seen as something that's good and helpful, but it's just not connected with religion at all. And yet I just wonder how much we try to connect our policies with religion, and there's a disconnect somehow.
All right, Dave, thank you so much for calling in. You are on the mark, and thanks for waiting.
Well, good morning. Well, while your guest is comparing the United States to Denmark, maybe she should compare the immigration policies of Denmark versus the immigration policies of the United States and see what happens to illegal immigrants in Denmark. But anyhow, our president declared that the United States is not a Christian nation, and everything involved with separation of church and state, where we dare have the nativity scenes at Christmas time and so forth, and to be politically correct, we're not even supposed to say Merry Christmas. So with this, if the Christian end of the country, the Christian people of the country want to take and expound their beliefs and so forth and their humanitarian stuff, why don't they just take it in, not worry about the government? Because the way it's sounding, they're playing right into Rush Limbaugh's thing that they don't want to spend their money, but they want to spend your money. So why don't they just take them themselves? And then that brings on the other thing of the hypocrisy of the problem with the black youth in the country is because there's no father figure in the homes, but yet we're going to bring kids from other lifestyles, nationalities, that can't speak the language and so forth, and so now this isn't going to create a problem?
All right, boy, two good questions mixed in there.
Thoughts there,
Yep. All right.
Have a great day, guys.
You too. Thank you, Dave. All right. Well, we'll start out with a no father figure. The assumption would be that if these kids are adopted or whatever the situation happens to be, they would go into homes that would have a father figure per se.
Right.
And of course, it can be portrayed by women as well.
But what is the end result there? I mean, isn't our goal to have them in a stable situation? Are they better off here without their parents?
All right. Let's get Dave's question. The father figure part first.
Well, I'm a big believer in the community raising the child. I've always thought the two-parent situation was a little overwhelming for both parents, and I think it really does take a community. And if you're a part of a Christian community by virtue of your baptism, you've got that community right now. You've got mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters. So as far as that goes, and Jesus wasn't a big fan of his own original family, his family of origin. He said, look, you're going to have to leave those folks, and you're going to have to choose who you wish to be family. And this is not to say that I don't love my own family and want to be with them, but I think that it means that your family is not just the people that are related to you. It's wider than that. And if you, as a Christian, you're going to have to see that it is. And yeah, Denmark is having a horrible time with their immigration policies right now. They're having a huge influx of Muslims over there, and it's really causing a huge cultural issue. So yeah.
But what would be wrong with shutting the border down? And if kids show up there, having some mechanism where if they can demonstrate that they are indeed refugees, that we give them, after admitting them legally to the country, we give them asylum. My problem is they're just coming across the border illegally. And we either are a country of laws or we aren't. And if we're going to have a law that says that you can't just walk into this country, then it ought to be enforced, regardless of the circumstances.
But if they're coming here not illegally, but if there are refugees, I mean, you're not going to say, well, you know, what's the option they're going to raise here? They're going to be without a father figure, or they're going to be killed and raped and conscripted into slavery when they're in Central America.
But I think you missed what I said. I said there should be a mechanism where they can apply as refugees.
How are they going to do? I just don't think that's practical.
So in other words,
when you're in distress and you're fleeing for your life, you're not going to say, "Oh, let me just fill out this form." So
it's practical to come across the border illegally, but not practical.
They're
to
not
come
coming across illegally.
Yes,
they
come
come to the border and turn themselves into the border patrol.
Well, you said we're a country of laws.
They cross the border illegally.
Well,
no, they don't. They go up to the workstation.
They hand themselves over.
Right, and they say, "Hi, I'm here."
They've crossed into the country illegally. They've come through Mexico from the country of origin.
Your main point about we're a country of laws, it is true, but what if those laws are not just?
Define just.
Well, I think that's where you have to come down on where does your Christianity make sense to you. I mean, how do I evaluate a law? I would evaluate a law at how I thought it was just, as opposed to what my Christian views tell me. That's what I would do. And I think there's also other reasons where practical, reasonable people could decide, you know, if it's just.
And if I can re-ask Dave's question, the first part of it, because we took the second part first, but the first part was he's asking, I believe he's asking, why don't churches just do all this work? If churches are so interested in helping, why don't churches do all the work?
Well, they are doing the work.
Yeah, they are.
And really. One of the things is that, you know, the Episcopal Relief and Development of my own denomination has been involved since 1939 in helping refugees all over the world resettle. So yes, there are. In fact, our presiding bishop put out a statement that if you're interested in doing this, so this is Christians helping other Christians, to where but she's advocating for two things: one, Christians helping other Christians globally, but also working for humane policy decisions. Because I mean, Joe's correct. The law says you can't cross the border, but is that a just law? Is that a good thing to have?
Is there any country that doesn't have that law that you're aware of? I'm not aware of any.
Well, but what does that have to do with doing a morally obligation of taking care of kids?
No, but you're making it sound like our policy is somehow less moral than other countries. Every country has an immigration policy.
Well, yes, on immigration it may be a policy, and it may be no more or less moral than any other country, but I would argue with you that our country is.
But why do you think countries did that? Why would you have an immigration policy? If we're all one big world, we're all one big happy family, why would any country have an immigration policy at all?
Well, I'm not a big fan of nationalism. I never have been. So you're asking the wrong question. You're asking for the wrong person.
She's borderless.
She flies no flag.
I'm an exile. I don't.
You fly no flag on the 4th of July, right?
I don't, no.
Mike, thank you so much for calling in. You're on the mark.
Yeah, I have a question for her. She keeps espousing about the Christian thing to do and religion involvement, but as the president said, we're not a Christian country. So why is it that she's questioning laws made with this country and basing her feelings on them on a religious standpoint of whether she feels they're just or not? She should be like everybody else. We should keep this country completely separate in the religion and the government aspects as the way that is politically correct right now.
All right, can I answer the first part and then I'll give you the...
Go for it.
I'll tell you why she's talking about her faith and how it influences politics is because I invited her up here to talk about how her faith influences politics. So
well, then you're contradicting what the policy is right now according to our president, and that is the separation of church and state should stand for everything.
No, I didn't say that faith should determine what the policy is. I said how it influences us.
You're contradicting what our president says, and if he's such a great president, which he's proving not to be, then he's wrong, and then fine, let religion influence the government. Well, but we either have to set a standard of we're going to separate government and religion, or we're not.
All right,
You
thank
can't
you, Mike.
have it both ways, because when you mix the two, you always get a conflict somewhere, and it's about time we define things down as black and white. Either religion's going to influence government, or it's not. If it's not, then the religious regions and segments have to back off and let the government do what needs to be done according to the laws established in this country. Because right now, just like Joe said, those children crossed the border illegally, totally illegally.
All
Whether
right.
they turn themselves in or not
All right, hold on, Mike.
is
Hold on.
irrelevant.
Let the
They
pastor
have
answer.
crossed the border illegally,
Mike.
and that you can't dispute.
Hold on. Go ahead, Pastor. Stay on the line, Mike. Though.
Okay. First of all, I think obviously there should be, and always is supposed to have been, a separation between church and state. However, that has nothing to do with the response of a Christian and a group of Christians to what they perceive as injustice. So those two things are separate issues, I find.
I would agree with you if you're saying that your own action as a Christian is the limit. What you're willing to do as a Christian.
What about
But
a whole
if you're-
bunch of Christians?
But if the whole bunch of Christians tell the government, you should be doing what we believe is best, then they are in fact trying to influence public policy with their religious views.
But who else? Who is?
All right, thank you, Mike.
Who else is uninfluenced by their own morality in anything they do, especially lawmakers and policymakers?
Well, yeah, forget faith. Yeah, right in morality
So,
instead. Okay.
so if you're prompted in your morality by being a Christian, how is that any different than you want to be a good person? So you figure, well, then let's put this policy into place.
All right, Dave is back.
I was going to say, if you decide the policy is the right policy, regardless of what led you to that point, then I agree you should act on it. But what bothers me is people who have the alternate view, you make it sound like, well, you can't possibly be a good Christian because you don't want to help these people. I want to help them, but I want to help them at the source. I don't want to help them inside our country.
First of all, let me just be really clear about this. I am in no position to tell anyone if they're being a good Christian or not. Wretched sinner as I am, I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm just trying to live out my faith as called by God and led by Jesus Christ. That's all I'm trying to do.
Can you stay till longer? I have to take a break. We have to do the call, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to get some closing arguments from Joe before she goes. Alrighty, Dave, thank you so much for calling in. Appreciate it. And I bet your first phrase is, Mark, you misparaphrased my question.
Well, I had another question that I was just curious on how many of these children your guest is personally going to adopt, and how many of these children you are personally going to adopt, Mark.
Well, we had one
Whether
shipped
you
here.
guys
There's a
are
big
talking
box.
to talk, or we're going to walk the walk.
All right, thank you, Dave. All right, well, yeah. How many are we each going to do? That keeps coming up every time.
And that is a valid question. That is an absolutely valid question, and he's perfectly justified in asking.
And the answer?
You know what? And this is going to sound like a really tap dancing around it. I struggle with it. I struggle with it because I know as a Christian I am not doing enough, let alone in Sunbury, let alone in Lewisburg. And then, am I doing right by these migrant kids? No, I'm not.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to wrap up our conversation. Robin Gerald is here, rector at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church. Speedy dialers, welcome. 3 emails pending on this topic, and then...
What does that mean?
Which?
Speedy dialers, welcome.
Well, we're
what
almost...
difference does it make if they dial fast or slow, if they get in the time?
1-800-795-9565. That's 1-800-795-9565. Mediocre velocity dialers are welcome. 1-800-795-9565. We will be right back.
While looking for a vehicle, you know that if it sounds too good to be true, chances are it is too good to be true. You get the runaround, gotta go from place to place. Well, you can just skip all of that and go straight to Sunbury Motor Company. Sunbury Motor Company has been satisfying more customers and selling more cars since 1915, so you know they've got it right. No offers that look good on paper or online, and then you get disappointed when you see them in person. Sunbury Motor Company offers a lineup few other auto dealers in the area can compete with the inventory inventory of Ford, Hyundai, Kia, and Lincoln vehicles, there will be no problem finding the right vehicle that fits your needs and your budget. And the friendly, knowledgeable staff's ready and able to help you with everything from the test drive to the drive off the lot. See for yourself at Sunbury Motors. Sunbury Motors, Ford, Lincoln, Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf. Look for them online anytime at sunburymotors.com.
Here's something to think about. How do you know if your insurance is the right price? Have you ever had your insurance reviewed? Do you remember when it was reviewed? And are you getting all the discounts you deserve? Let Groninger Insurance Agency give you a free, no-obligation second opinion on your auto, home, or business insurance. Give the Groninger Insurance Agency a call today at 570-473-8107. They're proud to represent the Erie Insurance Group. It's true, if you're not insured by Groninger Insurance, you're probably paying too much.
This is Justin Charles from Lenape Solar. Did you know we use exclusive manufacturing partners? Our solar modules are made with American components in an American factory by an American company in Milwaukee. Our lighting fixtures are made less than 3 hours away in Philadelphia. Even our fluorescent lamps are made here in the U.S., as are our solar racking systems. We're dedicated not just to quality, but our local economy. Find out more by calling 286-1496, online at lenapesolar.com, or drop by our showroom at 140 South 2nd Street, Sunbury, and see these products in person.
News and interviews from your community every morning on WKOK Sunrise.
U.S. Senator Pat Toomey, how can we affect some compromise to make something move forward in Washington?
My strong political views haven't stopped me from looking for common ground. That's what I have done consistently since I've been in the Senate, and that's what I think senators and House members ought to be doing.
News, sports, AccuWeather, and more every morning on WKOK Sunrise, on Newsradio 1070 WKOK, and on the WKOK app.
Welcome back to WKOK Live Telephone Talk Show. I am Mark Lawrence. Joe McGranahan's across from me, and bipolar opposites on this critically important issue of welcoming children into the U.S. He would ship them on a freight train right back to Honduras, and I
don't see your wallet out, buddy.
Right. Believe me, it's affected. There's no argument there. Kevin Hur is the greatest engineer the world has ever known. Speedy dialers can still get through. About 5 minutes left with Robin Jarrell. She's the rector at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church. What should we do? You talked about the fact on the mic that you don't feel you are doing enough yet,
right.
And certainly what you did so far might have nothing to do with what you do later.
Right.
But what can we do?
Well, I think one of the things that we can do is certainly work to alleviate the problems with children here and now where we are. You know, we have to start.
Help the Snyder County Coalition for Kids.
Absolutely. And, you know, if you've got an extra room in your house, you know, take in a migrant child.
Speak Spanish. That's the key.
The other issue, I think, for me is that, you know, the raising of awareness that people have to become aware of just how their belief systems do influence the way that we as a culture deal with issues and problems. Certainly there's all kinds of Christian and Jewish communities where I'm sure they have policies and things set up to provide funding for resettling these refugees. I know the Episcopal Relief and Development does. I'm sure the Lutherans do. I'm sure Roman Catholics and American Catholics. I have no doubt that if you want to put some money into place to try to help these children, I think that's an important thing to do.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Sure.
I really do appreciate it. Carrie Walter, our great priest and friend, offers critical incident stress debriefing for folks who have been through On the Mark on this topic, so he'll be more than happy.
She handled herself very well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's the pro's pro, so very much appreciate Robin Jarrell, rector at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll scan just a few quick news headlines, and then we'll launch into the last half hour. We could stay on the topic, but we'll say goodbye to our great guest who's been with us so far. You're listening to Newsradio 1070 WKOK.
Policies issued by American General Life Insurance Company, Houston, Texas. Not available in all states. For details, visit AIGdirect.com.
On March 3rd last year, Henry W. faced his own death with incredible courage. He wasn't in an accident. He wasn't ill. He wasn't in any danger. But he faced this reality head on. If he died, His wife and children wouldn't be able to pay the mortgage, make the car payments, or keep up the life they'd had. His family would lose everything. So he picked up the phone and called AIG Direct. He found out that through AIG Direct, he could get a $250,000 life insurance policy for less than $14 a month. Now, he knows that he's helped make his family's future secure, no matter what happens to him.
Protecting your family with coverage through AIG Direct is fast, easy, and incredibly affordable. Call AIG Direct right now for a free no-obligation quote. The call takes less than 5 minutes, and you can save up to 70%. Call now. 1-800-463-7058. That's 1-800-463-7058. 1-800-463-7058.
The best get-togethers start with a trip to the beverage supermarket, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury. Why? Because Brewers Outlet has not only a great selection of beer, including imports and microbrews, but also a lot more. Brewers Outlet has water, soda, they roast their peanuts every day, and you can't forget about stopping by the pickle bar. Look for great deals on wine coolers and all your favorite snacks. Before you enjoy those special times with family and friends, make your visit first to the beverage supermarket, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury.
Daddy, can I have the keys?
Someday, your little one will want to drive.
Dad, can I have the keys?
And now that they've gone from car seats to car keys, you can only hope they'll drive safely. Go beyond telling your kids to look both ways. Tell them not to talk or text while driving. And if they drink, call you 24/7.
This message brought to you by the stations of Sunbury Broadcasting Corporation, including Newsradio 1070 WKOK and Sealands Grove Ford, proud supporters of Susquehanna Smart Drive.
News and interviews from your community every morning on WKOK Sunrise.
Stephen Stumbers is here, director of the Bucknell University Small Business Development Center.
10 startup businesses already bringing the Entrepreneurs Incubator, the Bucknell University Entrepreneurs Incubator in downtown Lewisburg, up to capacity.
News, sports, AccuWeather, and more every morning on WKOK Sunrise, on Newsradio 1070 WKOK, and on the WKOK app.
Big Ten Media Day continues in Chicago. We'll talk about that and also the future of Penn State athletics. 3 to 5 today, News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Welcome back to the WKOK Live Telephone Talk Show. It is entitled On the Mark. I am Mark Lawrence. We are always grateful that the Granier Insurance Agency sponsors the toll-free line, 1-800-795-9565. It's wide open now. We'll talk about anything you want. 1-800-795-9565. Call us now. Lenape Solar email in basket is open. On the Mark at WKOK.com. The address, Sunbury Motor Company, is our sponsor. Kevin Hurt is the greatest engineer in the planet. The additional ring of satellites that you see on your smartphone app is actually the awards that have been jettisoned into shipping containers. Those aren't the awards themselves. They're the shipping containers full of his awards. It looks almost like another ring around the earth at this point. Joe McGranahan, our good conservative co-host, and is a mayor of Shamokin the mayor of Shamokin, former council member, 50 years in radio he put in as various jobs, including COO of Sunbury Broadcasting Corporation. Speaking of mayor, Sunbury Mayor David Persing appointed Bradley Hare as the new chief of police last evening. Hare says he's up for the challenge, says we have a good group of officers that will make the department run very well. And the president and CEO of Geisinger Health System will be leaving next year. Dr. Glenn Steele Jr. dropped the other foot after indicating some months ago on an interview on WKOK that his tenure was in the early phases of winding down. He says he'll step down in June of 2015. 5 Pennsylvania congressmen say forget about pension, education, liquor control, or other critical issues that are pending. It is time once again to protect Penn State after the Penn State child rape cover-up and the Jerry Sandusky molestation scandal. The 5 congressmen want the NCAA to ease up. They released a letter Monday and sent it to the NCAA saying that the consent decree that removes some of Joe Paterno's victories is overreaching by the NCAA. Also, the temporary ban on postseason play and the reduction in scholarships, they want to see that change. So rather than work on critical issues in Harrisburg there, of course, football rules.
They were congressmen. They don't deal with Harrisburg. That'd be Washington.
Did I see Harrisburg?
Yes,
pardon
you
me.
did.
And in the...
No, wait, what was that last part?
He said they were congressmen.
No. Mark's last part.
Oh. Said he was sorry?
All I heard was football rules.
Yeah, football rules. That's right, the football culture. And finally, they did the same
According
thing
to the NCAA.
And finally, yesterday in the White House, they did the same thing. Rather than address the critical, important issues of the day, they honored singer Linda Ronstadt. She's gotten the answer that she's always wanted when she asked the question, when will I be loved? President Barack Obama yesterday hung the National Medal of Arts around Ronstadt's neck and revealed that he had a crush on her. The honor was a particularly special moment for her. She didn't make it to her induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because of Parkinson's disease. So that was the topic of the day yesterday in the White House. Okay, 5 emails pending. Chris and Milton standing by. We'd love to hear from you. Call now, 1-800-795-9565. Chris, thanks for your patience. You're on the mark.
Yeah, there's so much to say about the refugee issue, shall we call it.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, David's question, I think Robin was completely wrong. It's not a good question at all. It's a lousy question.
What question is that? I'm sorry.
About how many, I think it was David who said about how many children are you willing to adopt being your criterion. How much of his bank account is he going to pay to send the kids back if he wants them sent back?
Well, actually, he is paying for that. Taxpayers are. We're paying quite a bit.
Taxpayers paying for that. That's not what he's asking.
Okay.
He did. So it's the same thing. I mean, it's like asking Joe. He could ask Joe, well, you think you should fix the problem at the source. Are you going to fly down there with your gun and protect those kids?
If you want me to, I will.
I mean,
in Honduras and Central America, sure.
The only difference I see in this, Chris, is that these kids don't have a legal right to come into the country. So if you're asking, let me finish my thought. May I finish my thought? Would you put him on hold so I can finish my thought?
Yeah, he'll wait.
If we are going to say that they are coming into this country and we're going to take care of them, that requires some sort of an action on the part of the government. But if they're coming in on their own and forcing us to take care of them, then I think it's a legitimate question. If you want them to stay, what are you going to do to help them stay? Why should I pay for something like that when they came in illegally? Now, if the government decides legally to go into Honduras, if the Congress votes for it and the government supports it, and we go into Honduras to solve the problem down there, that's a different issue.
All right, last word on this, Chris.
Going into Honduras makes it the issue. We didn't, when there was trouble in Haiti, we took refugees before we sent troops there. When Cubans migrated to the shore, we didn't say, well, we got to get rid of Castro and fix it at the source.
We tried. We
tried and we failed, but we kept taking refugees after we quit trying.
But we didn't even try in Honduras or El Salvador or Guatemala.
Well, of course not, because you don't want to spend any money on it.
I would rather spend the money on that than some of the other things we're doing.
I didn't hear you campaigning, let's spend money on Honduras because of the terrible conditions down there until they showed up at our border.
So where do you want to solve the problem, Chris?
Why do you keep saying they're illegal?
Where do you want to solve the problem, Chris? Do you want to solve it here on our doorstep, or do you want to solve it where it was created?
First of all, even if we were to go down there to try to do something to solve the problem, which I hope we're at least doing some kind of negotiations to get in that direction.
So do I.
We are. That doesn't solve the problem of the refugees who are here now, does it?
It does. If we solve the problem down there, we can send them back. We can send them back if we make it safe for them down there.
Yeah, okay. So are you saying we should keep them until it's safe for them down there?
No, I'm saying we should take them back and create some sort of safe environment for them there, if that's what it takes to get them back with their parents.
Keep them here until then.
Americanize them, in other words.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, who's better off to take care of them, their parents or the government? I would rather have their parents taking care of them in their homes safely.
Thank you, Chris. Great questions. One of our listeners sends us a note. Says, I believe your guest has many good points, but she's also missing the fact that many folks are already giving of their own extra resources so that the poor in their own backyards have an opportunity. Right here within 35 miles of us, and this is in Texas, I'll say, of us, 400 of the undocumented children have been forced into low-income communities. Is your guest suggesting we should stop helping our neighbors and take on children who are being forced onto our society?
Look at the impact on school districts. Some of these children don't even speak Spanish. Some of them speak other languages, native languages to those countries. And putting them in the school system is going to tax everybody. You know, I think that we really have an obligation to help them, but I believe that help has to come from their home countries, too.
All right, 1-800-795-9565, the telephone number. Give us a buzz if you want to weigh in on this topic. We're sifting through the emails on the mark at WKOK.com, and the email address. Tony sends us a note. It says, so if you agree with a law, follow it. But if you don't agree with a law, well, your conscience can decide. Just law, who decides? Even though we're not a Christian nation, we are guided by our Christian values, according to your guest. Does she not fly the flag? Doesn't she believe?
She does not fly.
She does not fly the flag. Does she not believe in borders? Why does she have opinions about how within our borders we should act? She wants to live by the rules of Jesus Christ. Did she say, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's? I believe that includes his laws too, or don't that count? Thank you, Tony. Great guest. The words from one of our guests. Oh, that's all. It's in the subject. Great guest, so I appreciate that. Than sends us a note. Says, I think we're getting a lesson in what religion claims that it is. So read that for me. Let me move it over to the other side.
I think that I can read it where it is. I think that we are getting a lesson in what religion claims that it is as. What he means there, I'm not sure. The pastor is trying to help children, and the response is negative.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Faith is trying to help. Faith community is trying to help. And, of course, there's a lot of vitriol and pushback. Let's see. Another listener says, we have a policy that Joe asks for. We have the policy that Joe asks for. Come to the border, turn yourself in, and ask for asylum, and then go to court to figure out the outcome. It's a 2008 bipartisan law.
That would be fine if they actually didn't come across the border first. If they came to the window somewhere and said, I'd like to apply for asylum, and legally they're granted it, then they come into the border and cross the border, come into the United States.
Okay, well, whatever. Anyway, the Pew Research...
Not whatever, that's an important distinction.
Oh, yeah, for 20 feet they're illegal, but the last foot they get asylum. So, oh my gosh, they're illegal. What difference does it make?
It makes a big difference.
It
makes a big difference. We have borders. Every other country in this world has borders. All of a sudden, we should be taking ours down.
I'm channeling Hillary. We have two callers coming in.
What difference does it make? Oh, yes, she was very good with that.
Thank you. Caitlin sends us a note. Third smartest woman in the world, I guarantee you, says, the Pew Research Center consistently finds no big difference between white and black fathers. Although black fathers are more likely to live separately from their children, many of them remain just as involved in their kids' lives. This is the myth of the magical missing black father. And there's compelling evidence that the number of black dads living apart from their kids stems from structural systems of inequity and poverty, not the unfounded assumption that African-American men somehow place less value on parenting. Yeah, well said. Thank you, Caitlin. Very much appreciated.
I don't think Bill Cosby would exactly
We're busting
say that.
Myths here. Paul, you're on the mark. Go right ahead.
Well, gentlemen, you speak about law and what to do and how to do it. But the thing that you're not really considering is those things that I have mentioned before, which was the force. You have emotions, compassion, and feelings. And law has nothing to do with that, because that is emotions that are expressed by man. And he has got those things at birth. All other animals migrate and they associate and they mingle amongst themselves. And because of their emotions, their feelings, and their compassions, they decide, because it is the thing to do. Nobody tells them to do it, and there's no law that says they have to do it. They do it because they feel that it is the thing to do.
All right. Yeah, great observation. And it's not even a question. So well said, Paul. Did that kill you? All right, Chris, last word.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Well, you did your 3 minutes, and then I cut you off.
What I was saying, or what?
You had your 3 minutes, he's saying.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay, well, sorry then. But anyway, I couldn't get Joe to answer my question, and then he asked me a question. I tried to answer it, and I was cut off. So
I'm sorry about. Well, I didn't do the cutting. Just so you know, Chris, I'm not on that side of the table.
No,
what question did you want me to answer?
But anyway,
okay.
What refugees get there? What refugees apply from afar who can? I mean, there are certain special circumstances where we were in countries like Iraq and Vietnam where people could apply from afar.
We have embassies in every country of the world, Chris, and legations.
So you think they should 50,000 children should go to the embassy in Honduras, eh?
if that's where they want to apply.
Practical solution.
So the more practical solution, Chris, the more practical solution is they travel 2,000 miles across 3 other countries to come to our door. That's more practical to you?
It's not more practical to me, but it's more practical to them.
Well, they didn't even try going to the embassy in Honduras.
Oh, listen to this. Joe knows. Joe knows. All right, thank you, Chris. Let's take our last break of the day, and then we have an email from the single smartest woman in the world, and that has the word Hobby Lobby in the first sentence. So let's find out what she's got to say. We'll take that up in a moment. Our main sponsor of the On the Mark program is the Sunbury Motor Company.
While looking for a vehicle, you know that if it sounds too good to be true, chances are it is too good to be true. You get the runaround, gotta go from place to place. Well, you can just skip all of that and go straight to Sunbury Motor Company. Sunbury Motor Company has been satisfying more customers and selling more cars since 1915, so you know they've got it right. No offers that look good on paper or online, and then you get disappointed when you see them in person. Sunbury Motor Company offers a lineup few other auto dealers in the area can compete with. With the inventory of Ford, Hyundai, Kia, and Lincoln vehicles, there will be no problem finding the right vehicle that fits your needs and your budget. And the friendly, knowledgeable staff's ready and able to help you with everything from the test drive to the drive off the lot. See for yourself at Sunbury Motors. Sunbury Motors, Ford, Lincoln, Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf. Look for them online anytime at sunburymotors.com.
Where will you learn about the latest innovations in the agriculture industry? What has nearly 500 exhibitors, agricultural demonstrations, workshops, and guided tours? Where can you enjoy lots of great food, activities for the kids, and summer fun for the whole family? Penn State's Ag Progress Day, August 12th through the 14th on Route 45 near State College, PA. Parking and admission are free. Penn State's Ag Progress Days. Find out more at apd.psu.edu.
So, I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Dwight Galt, the strength and conditioning coach at Penn State.
With Ackerberg, I try not to mess it up. Kid's been here 13 months. And, not even 13 months. And, the way he acts and the way he carries himself, the way he leads, the way everybody respects him, you think he was a fourth-year guy. So you have that to work with. Physically, just a great product.
The Steve Jones Show, 3 to 5 weekdays on News Radio 1070 WKOK and on the WKOK app.
Welcome back. WKOK Live Telephone Talk Show. Mark Lawrence here on the Mark Show with Joe McGranahan. And on the other side of the glass is Kevin Herr. And Cindy's back on the line. Thank you so much for calling back, Cindy. I didn't deter you so much that you would never speak to me again. So thank you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Anyway, I wanted to answer the question, what are we doing for them in their homeland? And since 2008, the taxpayers of the United States have given over $7 billion to Latin America. And I want everyone to consider that we've done this even as our country was in a desperate financial crisis. In fact, we send about $1.7 billion to the specific countries every year to these specific countries that are now deporting their children to us. In addition to this situation, legally, we admit 1 million people a year to this country through the legal immigration system. That's a fact I got on NPR the other day. 1 million people a year, we admit them legally to this country through immigration. Now, the aid that we send to Central America includes the following: food assistance, economic development aid, humanitarian aid, and assistance in drug enforcement. In fact, we have a assistance program specifically trained on helping them. So I think it's some people may want to spend more, but the American people, regardless of our own desperate financial straits, and I have to agree with, was it Pastor Robin?
Yes, that's
Mother
Robin.
We need to take care of our own children, and I personally, my family, we have taken action on that. But where I think the conflict comes in is that I don't tell these people, and you will have to give me some of your money, some of your food, some of your clothing, so that I can send it to these people. And I think we're not listening to the fact that the majority of Americans are under great financial stress and or are fearful of it when people, regardless of how good their intentions are, demand that the government take more of their money and use it for causes which they may or may not agree with. I think that's the problem.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. This really relates to the tax dollar question that we had. We did have a question about tax dollars. Churches pay taxes was the cry from everybody who's informed on this taxes and this issue. So in what way do churches pay taxes?
Well, they pay it on property that's not related to the church building.
So just the sanctuary is tax-free, but the
building.
Sunday school classes are taxed.
That's the church. If they're in the church building, they're not.
Okay, so what part of the church building isn't taxed then?
Well, for example, the rectory would be taxed.
Where the pastor stays.
Right.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. Isn't
The
that
parking
taxed?
lot?
Parking lot?
See, Kevin, your familiarity is the rectory is not taxed? Or
our church doesn't have that, so I can't speak on that for
I
sure.
don't think it is.
But,
it is taxed.
But I think
No, I
Joe,
think it's tax-free. Anyway,
yeah, I can't speak about that or a parsonage or anything along that line. But what I can tell you is that anything other than the building, as far as I know, is taxable, including parking lots.
Okay. Oh, parking lots are taxable. Wow.
Absolutely.
When the church rectory is attached to the church, I believe it's exempt. But if it's separate, I believe it's taxed.
I think Joe's right on that, but I'm
I think if it's
again,
used for housing of the pastor or the staff, it's tax-free.
But it's church-related. Well, then that makes the argument that the person came in, because that's almost everything. The parking lot can't have as much value as the real estate of a church and a home.
Unless parking's at a premium.
But the point is to say that a church doesn't pay taxes is not correct. Now, do they pay the same amount anybody else would? Probably not. You could make that argument.
Or do they pay their fair share, would be another way of asking.
That'd be a big fat no. All right. To that end...
But everybody in the building pays taxes.
Right. So they're a corporation, and corporations are people.
Oh, yeah, they make tons of money.
All right. No, I didn't say that they made tons of money. I just said that they're people, and corporations are people. So, anyway, one of our listeners, Jack, sent us a note. Says, I read this every time I go to the Statue of Liberty, and it is the poem by Emma Lazarus that says,
Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. Give us the teeming refuse of your wretched shore. I lift my lamp beside the golden, whatever. We've heard that.
All right, that's
but
not what it says.
you have to consider the time at which that was written. It was written in the late 1880s when the statue was erected.
All right, let me read the whole thing since you think you know it all.
I don't know it all. I just know most of them.
I'm trying to emphasize that. The New Colossus is the title of the poem, and it says, not like the brazen giant of Greek fame with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your poor, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. So this is the sign of welcoming that is posted at the Statue of Liberty, which was a great
at a time when America
place.
was attempting to build its population, but people still could come to the door and apply to get in. They didn't sneak in. They came to the front door, knocked, and said, "May I come in?" And we said, "Yes, you may." Now we don't have that luxury anymore, Mark. It's not that we've changed our principles. It's just that we have spent so much money on other things, and we haven't defined our priorities in this country. We just can't keep spending money after money after money to throw it at a problem that isn't ours to begin with, and that we have, as Cindy correctly points out, spent billions of dollars trying to help people correct already. At what point do we say, look, we've done all we can do? Now it's your problem.
If you're the last child, it's like being on a traffic line and you're the one the flagman stops. You're going to go down to the Mexico border, and when the 97,000th child approaches the border seeking asylum, you're going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we can't handle any more in the U.S." One of our listeners.
If that's the case,
let me read the smartest woman. Hold on, Kevin. This is Ellen, and she is the smartest woman in the world. Says, using the Hobby Lobby Conestoga Wood decision, the Satanic Temple, a religious organization, is asserting a religious exemption from the burden of state-mandated informational abortion materials for those who share their deeply held beliefs. They have called these women's right to know laws a pernicious encroachment of informed consent laws regarding abortion. Thanks, Scalia. I'd love to hear Fred Keller's thoughts on this, says Ellen. Yeah, he's not talking to us, so we don't get to find that out.
I'm not familiar with what Satanic Temple she's talking about.
Well, it's obviously an organized group of some sort. Kevin.
You know, getting back to the border, what concerns me is Friday we talked to someone who has firsthand knowledge of the border and says that these are young people coming up to border crossing authorities, officers, and saying, I'm looking for asylum. So technically they're doing it correctly. My question is, if they are doing it correctly and asking for asylum, why are we having such a problem with it? If they are doing it correctly, it shouldn't be a problem. That leads me to believe that there are some doing it correctly, but not everybody.
Well, there are 785 who are 5 years of age and younger. This is from a graph published in the Los Angeles Times.
785 what?
785 children have come across who are 5 years and younger.
Last month?
Since this issue started, I guess they're counting them. Now, those 785 kids aren't coming across saying, could I please have asylum?
And are they
know the word?
And are they being threatened by the drug lords, as we're hearing that is happening?
6,675 are 6 to 12 years of age, but 39,000 plus are over the age of 13, are teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't you find that a little unusual? I mean, when you were talking about these as if they're young children who are here and helpless, but these are kids who are 13 and up. They're teenagers. They've had a background. Theoretically, they've had some education, so, I mean, I just find this argument
if they're teenagers, your compassion level plummets, in other words.
Well, they are old enough to understand the correct process, I would think, to come into the country. But, I mean, the fact that they come across the border and say, can you please, I want asylum, is one thing. But if you knock on the front door and then ask for asylum to come in, that's a different thing.
All right. Well, it is the teens who are the most in danger, as Robin so eloquently pointed out. Let's see. One of our listeners, third smartest woman in the world, says the people in the church, incidentally, don't pay taxes on the money that they donate to the church. That's right. Yeah.
We have the first and third smartest woman. Who would the second smartest woman be? I'm just curious in your world.
Melissa.
Oh, okay. She's the second smartest woman.
And what's the point? You don't do it when you give to the United Way, too. Are you going to tax that? Is that what you want? I don't understand the question.
Well, I don't think it is a question. I think it's an observation. If you talk about churches being tax-free, remember people who support them get a tax deduction.
Let's be honest about that. You only get that deduction for your donations to charities
if you itemize.
If you itemize and if you qualify for it. It isn't an automatic deduction.
Okay, gotcha. And that is relevant how?
I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, it certainly doesn't seem clear to me. Dan, you're going to be the last caller of the day. You got 30 seconds. Go.
I just wanted to call and say some of the comments I don't have time to make on some of the comments that your previous guest made, but we are a nation of laws, and you violate our laws. If you violate that law, that means we should be able to violate any law. Where would we be as a society if we did that? Doesn't matter what the law is. They're laws for reasons. They have to be followed. That's what we decide as a nation. That's why I guess everybody wants to come here. But we're a nation of laws. When you violate them, you break the law. It's wrong, period. Bottom line, I don't care what law it is.
All right.
You got that right, Dan.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you what, very articulate.
Thank you for calling.
So children seeking asylum should be welcomed with open arms. Thank you, Joe.
Right. That wasn't Dan's point.
Right. I didn't
Thank you for having me. It was fun to be here today.
Thank you, Kevin. Nicely done.
We'll
Thanks,
continue
Robin
this
Carroll.
debate or something else on Thursday.
WKOK Sunbury.